Good day, good night, and welcome to Off the Woodworkx. It's a pre-game show today, yes, getting ready for tonight's Concacaf Champions League round of 16, second leg between the Montreal Impact and Deportivo Saprissa at the Big O, at the Stade Olympique. It's going to be a memorable day, good or bad. It's going to be memorable. And first of all, let's start the show by saying that the game is official, according to the Régie of Installation of Olympics. I don't know how, there's no English equivalent, right? So it's the Régie des Installations Olympiques, the governmental agency that takes care of the Olympic installation and infrastructure in Montreal. That organization mentioned just before 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday that the game will take place despite of the snowstorm that is expected in Montreal on Wednesday evening to Thursday. The game will take place on Wednesday evening as expected. So yay, the game is official. Woohoo. And as you can see, today we're going to talk about the Montreal Impact press conference. I was at the Olympic Stadium earlier today for Thierry Henry's press conference. Also, Safir Taider and Samuel Piet were on the podium after. And I was also there for the 15 minutes of the Montreal Impact practice that was available for the media. We didn't really learn anything, or did we? We'll break that down later on. And I was there also for the press conference of Walter Centeno and Johan Venegas of Deportivo Saprissa before the big game on Wednesday. So now let's start and talk about Thierry Henry's press conference. It was a very interesting press conference. You can find the raw audio on our Patreon feed at patreon.com/sports podcasting network. But let's listen to Thierry Henry for a few minutes here.
So there is some urgency to this game. It is an elimination game after all, and then a few days later is the start of the MLS season. Is this game that you'll have midweek going to influence your lineup going into MLS?
Well, personally for me there is an urgency in every game. That's how it is, that's how it should be even in training. Now is it going to have an influence on how we're going to play against New England? I can only tell you at the end of the game, because I didn't expect in the first game that we're going to lose two players in the first 27 minutes. So that's something that you cannot predict. So it's very difficult for me to answer that question, and I don't want to answer it, but let's see how we're going to finish the game against Saprissa.
And if I may, are you expecting your players that are going to play on Wednesday to play Saturday as well? Are you expecting that of your players?
Well, expecting or not, they're here to be able to play, and whoever's going to be fit to play is going to be obviously at our disposal to be able to start a game against New England. That's what you expect from your team, whatever game it is.
Oh, in the back, Coach. Is there any concerns playing on the field turf here at the Big O for your players going on that, given that you guys played on grass last week?
Not that I know of. The guys didn't complain too much about it. Some of the guys that have been here for a while played on it already. Not that I know of, in all fairness, no.
Kelsey, you had a question?
Yeah, you're talking about the physical side, the match fitness, but just in terms of mental, that energy, how easy is it to get the guys ready for a game like this? 2 games into the season in front of the fans, and it's a knockout game.
Like I said, I've been trying to get them ready, even in training games. You know, I think you need to have a mentality in order to be able to perform in those games to start in training. So obviously, as you said, it is a real game. Where it matters, for me it always matters, but this one obviously matters more because you can be out after the second one. But it's just a normal one, right? You're at home. Some guys maybe never played in front of the stadium like that in our team. Might be their first game or not. I don't know yet what the starting lineup is going to be. You're playing against a good team. We brought something back at home to be able to see if we can go through.
Bruce?
Hi Terry, everything you've seen since the first day in Orlando, is your opinion you are closer to where you want to be, or you are further than you thought from where you want to be?
It's a long road. Usually you don't have, I just don't like to stop, so I don't know where we can go. So let's see how far we can go. Then, like I said, on a physical point of view, the other day in Saprissa, I like what I saw. although we all knew it was going to be a bit tough towards the end. But I don't make myself any plan to where we can be and what we can achieve. The structure of the plan and the way we're going to play and the way we're going to fight is going to dictate that. As you can imagine, obviously being here for not that long, it's better to have time to be able to put whatever you want to put in position and perform. But like I said, I don't have like a time, whether it's in March or in April or whatever. What I liked the other day, I can tell you for now, is the way we did battle the other day against a team that is a very good team. I know I mentioned it so many times, but they know how to maneuver the ball, be patient, and make you run from side to side. Sorry, so it was a tough one, but so far I'm happy with what I've seen. It's a short one at the minute, obviously, because I've been here for just a little while. Sorry, but like I said, we'll see what's going to happen and see what's going to happen tomorrow, because it's going to be a tough game again.
You surprised us a little bit with the back line of five in that first game. We hadn't seen that in camp. Sort of a two-part question. Was that something you were hiding during camp, or is it something you didn't like, which led you to go towards the five-man back line? And is that something we can expect to see tomorrow?
First and foremost, I don't hide anything. It's something that wasn't working in preseason. You don't have to be that clever to see that it wasn't working. Okay. You also have to give it a chance, because you cannot just stop like that, right? But then you have to adapt and adjust to what you have and what's been happening. I think that's one of the most important things. You cannot be stubborn on what you wanted to do right from the start. You need to see also what the team is offering you and how they respond. And so we went that way. It worked out at the beginning because we surprised them, I think. Are we going to play the same way tomorrow? I cannot answer that. Might be the same, a different way, might not be the same.
Will it be the same? Will it be a different way? That's the question that we're all asking ourselves. Will Montreal play with 5 defenders tomorrow? That's a good question. I don't know. I have no idea. We'll look at it later today. We'll go back in time and look at the last lineup that Montreal did play and see if any changes, some will need to take effect because of injuries, of course, of Rudy Camacho. We'll get to the injury update later on the show. Now let's talk about Saprissa. Let's talk about, first of all, I just want to finish with Samuel Piette mentioning in the press conference also that the defensive mentality, it could be easy, we could continue and just absorb, and the result at the end 0-0 would make us go through, but it's never a good mentality to try to play defensive. What if they get the goal? What if they do what you don't want them to do? So play your game is what Samuel Piette was mentioning. Safir Taider mentioned also that they need to be as close as possible fitness-wise to what they can be, to do the best they can. This game is important. It is a very important game and competition, he mentioned. And the way he was talking, and by the way, you can get the raw audio on our Patreon page right now at patreon.com/sportspodcast network. Both Thierry Henry, Samuel Piette, Safir Taider, and also Walter Centeno and Johan Venegas are all on the website in its entire form. We'll get an excerpt from Walter Centeno and Johan Venegas in a second. But Samuel Piette and Safir Taider especially was mentioning the importance of this tournament, how they have to prioritize it. And it doesn't matter if the league starts on Saturday. They're all important games. As a professional, you need to be able to play every 3 games. Every 3 days. You need to play a game every 3 days, were the direct quote of Safir Taider. And that for me is interesting because it is a shift of mentality. Years and years ago, professional players were getting ready to play once a week and twice a week a few times in the year, but it wasn't that special. Now 3 times in 8 days is the new twice a week. So it is interesting to hear it from the mouth of a player that playing every 3 days is okay. It's okay. It's what it demanded of them, and they need to be ready as professionals to play through. So will we see some rotation on the Impact side? We'll get to it later in our prediction segment, also during the Bink segment, which you're wondering, why is Binks on the Patreon there? Well, I'll let you know later on. Let's talk about Saprissa. Walter Centeno, manager of Saprissa, was answering a question by a Costa Rican journalist asking, the president of Saprissa mentioned this game was extremely important. How do you feel about this? And Walter Centeno answered, well, I didn't hear that. It is very important, and we're going to do our best tomorrow. Now, an actual important question was asked after that one. Someone asked Walter, so how are you going to approach this game and having the time to get to know Montreal more? And then he mentioned, we didn't really know what to expect last week. Even though it's Thierry, the manager, we didn't know what to expect as a formation, as a squad, as a identity of play. He mentioned, of course, 2 hours before the game, he had an idea and an idea of the lineup also that was going to take place later on. And they did do some adjustment during the game. Also, we'll get to it in a second. We'll hear Walter and Johan Venegas, and then we'll hear the translation. Also, thank you to the Concacaf for providing instant translation, because while me no habla español, me comprende un poquito, but me no habla español seriously. There was also, I needed translation there, and I got some help from Concacaf right there. So, speaking of, Walter Centeno, manager of Saprissa, and Johan Venegas, former Montreal Impact, former player of the Montreal Impact, also of Minnesota United.
This time around, Montreal is going to be expected to hold the ball a bit more. How is the manager going to make sure that his team can still hold the ball more than Montreal?
La expectativa es que Montreal mantenga mucho más la pelota en este partido. ¿Cómo piensa usted contrarrestar esto?
Bueno, imponiendo desde el inicio. Creo que nosotros somos un equipo de posesión, al igual que ellos. Así que el que mejor o el que más certero llegue mañana o el que con más confianza llegue es el que va a manejar el partido, y esperemos que seamos nosotros. Sabemos del potencial del Impact, pero mañana veremos a ver qué es lo que pasa.
Yeah, we definitely need to enter the pitch with confidence. I think that's gonna make the difference. We know it's a tough team. We know what they're coming for. So from the very beginning, we're gonna enter trying to control the ball as much as we can.
And just a quick follow-up. Barantes is not available tomorrow. Any other injuries of important players that are not going to be available tomorrow?
Sabemos que Barantes no va a poder jugar mañana. ¿Hay algunos otros jugadores que no podamos ver debido a lesiones?
No, por el momento solo Barantes.
Only Barantes for now.
So only Barantes for Saprissa will not be available tomorrow. Which leads us to the injury update. Let's talk about injuries. Let's talk about what did we learn today at training. First of all, Saphir will be available, and we'll talk about maybe his role later on the show. What should be ideally his role, if any. Hopefully there's one, but what is his role for tomorrow? But today at training at the Olympic Stadium, we did have a chance to see some players take part of the first team training, like Romel Kyoto, that you can see if you zoom in on your screen right now. But we did see also Okonkwo and Lassi Lapalainen run by themselves around the pitch for a good 10 minutes out of the 15. Now, my question is, did it stay like this after we left the pitch? Did they take part of the training after? Officially, according to Pat Valle, Director of Communication of the Montreal Impact, he mentioned to us that Lapalainen and Orji are on a day-to-day basis. So they're day-to-day injury. When we're looking at Rudy Camacho, he's out for 4 to 6 weeks. We knew that. It is a strain of his knee and not a ligament tear or something that severe. So that's kind of a good news. It's only 4 to 6 weeks and not 4 to 6 months. So that is a positive news for Rudy Camacho, but it's still bad news because he won't be available tomorrow night or tonight, depending on when you're listening to this show. Well, so Kyoto will probably be available, probably be on the starting 11 also. Now, Taider is available. That's good. That's very good that Taider is available. You'll need Saphir for a specific role and I'm going to mention it soon. But I do believe that we will see Romel Kyoto starting this game. Lassi Lapalainen and Orji Kwankwo. Now that's the question. A day-to-day as of Tuesday. Are they going to be day-to-day on Wednesday? Are they going to be fit for Wednesday? If it goes by history, in the past, the Montreal Impact and different staff would not necessarily play players that did not take part in full training all the way up to the game. Now the question is, did they take part of the training after we left? The only thing we actually saw in the 15 minutes of the training were very, drills to run to cones, running a bit, goalies, stopping shots, and a drill of quickly stopping shots, but nothing very intricate. After the media left, though, I imagine the intricate training took part. And were Orji and Lassi Lapalainen still a part of the first group, or were they a part of the first group? That is my question, but we don't know. And I guess we'll only know when we see the lineup on Wednesday evening. Well, that's the beauty. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Kev Laramie and our Patreon, of course, patreon.com/sportspodcasting network. I will use some lens tomorrow for patrons only. So if you're one of our patrons from the Stade Saputo, from Stade Olympique, I'm so used to going to Stade Saputo, but it kind of felt good to go to Stade Olympique today. I kind of went in and I saw that smoked meat counter with the yellow backdrop that hasn't changed since 1994. Yeah, I'm home. I'm really home. It's my home. You don't know, but there's actually a picture of me right here in the studio. About 3 years old, not even 2 years old, on top of the dugout. It truly is my home. I truly love the Olympic Stadium. Don't get me wrong. I'm barely joking here, and I'm looking forward for this game Wednesday night. But make sure you follow me on social media at Kev Laramie, anywhere else. I'll giving you all of the information that I gathered throughout the day. I'll be there early. We'll have some fun. We'll chat with some colleagues. We'll make some special contents for you available everywhere, but especially for our patrons at patreon.com/sportspodcast network. But let's continue. So what I was mentioning with the injury update here. Camacho, forget about it. Orji and Lassi are the big question. Kyoto will be there. Boyan's fine. Most of the roster that we've seen last week outside Camacho was there. Now the question is it going to be Waterman? Is it going to be Binks? Waterman did do well, but Binks is available for this one, apparently. We've asked and the question was answered, and yes, Binks is available tomorrow night. So Binks being available, he's tall. And my logic here might be simplistic, but it's early in the season. It's still February. And Hakam razors. That's the famous law that says sometimes the simplest explanation is the actual truth, and the explanation, that's a layman's way to explain the theory. But Hakam razors theory says that maybe a simple solution is a right solution. Playing at the Big O, do not overcomplicate things. You're going to get chances probably on the counter. You're probably going to absorb late in the game. But where you got caught a few times last week was in the box, was on corners. And one thing you can do to avoid that is have a very tall defender there that can boot the ball out of there with his head or whatever else, whatever is needed. But a big body there. A very high Q football player is what I was able to gather so far about Binks. When he gets on the field, he's very mature in his play. And for a defender, that's great. And he wants the limelight. He wants to shine. He wants to get out of the academy and play. Well, tomorrow night could be your night. If Binks starts for Montreal, I think he's gonna have a good one. I think the circumstances of having a game on a surface that is not easy for both the Impact and Saprissa, in the words of Johan Venegas, a damaged surface. Some of that is probably lost in translation and not adequate, used, not new. I was going to say second hand, but make that third hand, if not fourth. Maybe that's what he meant. But he used damage, at least the translator. She did use damage. But so you have the surface, that is one issue. You have the weather. It's not going to be warm, but it's not going to be cold either. It's not going to be warm, but still, inside the Olympic Stadium, kind of nippy in February. There's a little draft. Let's just put it that way. So if you're going to the game, by the way, make sure you bring your little scarf or something. It can get a little nippy in there. But for Saprissa players, it can get a little nippy. But the surface, that aspect, that Costa Rican team historically do not travel well in the Concacaf Champions League. That is not new. We've seen it in 2015 for the Impact, but we've seen it way before that also in the Concacaf Champions League historically speaking. They do not have a winning percentage, not even close to it, Costa Rican team on the road versus Major League Soccer or Mexican opposition in the biggest tournament of this continent. So I do feel that Montreal's got an advantage there. And keeping it simple might be the solution, like I was saying, because, well, you're going to either absorb and you'll need Binks to work there. And the question is, unfortunately, Waterman, who did great, actually, did really well, but he was caught off guard, like the rest of the team also at a couple of times during this game. Having time and having Binks' situation figured out and more included in the team at this point, are we going to see the 3-man, 5-man back line again? That's a question. And if so, is it Binks or is it Waterman inserted in place of Camacho in that back line? Now that's another good question. And that's what I'm wondering, which one we're going to see tomorrow. I'm going to see Waterman get his first start, his second game with the Impact in a situation where he was not put in, like, it wasn't an easy situation. Make your debut substitution for a player not even 30 minutes in. Like 20 minutes in Camacho's case. So Binks or Waterman is my question, and I guess we'll see on a Wednesday evening. Now, I was talking about Safir Taider earlier. And Safir Taider is available for this game. It's been a couple of days that he's been training with the first team and has been fully fit, according to him. So the question is, do you start him or do you keep him on the bench? And that all depends if your goal is to simply slot him in a position that we expected him to be in. The best thing to do would be to put Taider instead of Sejdik, but I don't think that's necessarily the best thing. Why? Maybe I'm a little crazy here. I don't know if it's me being crazy, but I do think you need to keep some options on the bench. I think that's wise. And we'll have Jackson and Mal on the bench, unfortunately. Urruti might actually be on the bench once again, depending of how Montreal starts this lineup once again, depending on Okonkwo or whatever. So Urruti, Anthony, Jackson, and Mel. But in the midfield, what is your attacking options? Depending if Lapalainen is fit or not, Taider could be that. So do you go with Sejdik again? Or maybe a Shom in place of Sejdik? But Taider on the bench? Or should Taider take his rightful spot right next to Samuel Piet, which is probably the most likely situation if he starts. But if not, could be an idea too that Thierry Henry keeps some fresh legs for later on. And of course, knock on wood, this time around he will not have to burn 2 substitutions in the first half. And technically, you don't use a substitution for a defender also. So it does give you some options up front. You might have 1 or 2 players with fresher legs in the final third than you did versus Saprissa in the first leg, which is the point of this whole thing, is to have some ammunition on the bench. Could Taider be that ammunition on the bench? That's a thought. but maybe not. Maybe just Jackson, Uruchi, Lapalainen if Lapalainen is fit. So maybe that's the key. If Lapalainen is fit, Lapalainen is your attacking midfielder option off the bench for the 60th, 65th minute, depending of the game circumstances. Also, if you're winning, maybe you go with a defensive option. So that could be one. But if Lapalainen is not available for the game, and if Okonkwo is not available for the game, what do you do? And those are pretty good puzzles that Thierry Henry will have to figure out before kickoff time on Wednesday night at the Stade Olympique. Which leads me to this fun time, prediction time. I'm working on my season-long prediction on soccer today. You're going to see later on this week a bunch of content on the network on soccer today and a special or big long article about every single team. I'm going game by game, team by team, and making a whole prediction spreadsheet, calculating, tabulating numbers, and at the end I'll have a good idea of what this season could be in the world that I created with my predictions, which could be real, could be not. Maybe we'll see some pitfalls and traps of the calendar come out in this exercise, and we'll know more about the Montreal Impact regular season later on with this prediction. But now it's time to predict the Concacaf Champions League round of 16, second leg between the Montreal Impact and Deportivo Saprissa. 2-2 right now after the first game. Montreal's got the away goal advantage for now. Finishes 0-0, finishes 1-1. Montreal goes through. It's 2-2. We're going to penalties. Yeah, going to penalties. But if Montreal concedes 3 goals, Montreal needs to score 2. That's simple. So basically, if you're looking at this, Saprissa scores, Montreal ties. It's like the Pachuca situation. Montreal's losing, but a Cameron Porter goal saves Montreal. Montreal goes through. But if Montreal concedes twice, Montreal needs to score 3 goals. That's that situation. So you concede 1, you only need to score 1. You concede 2, you need to score 3. So that's a dilemma tonight. And I guess that's the dilemma that Samuel Piet was talking about. You kind of want to go forward, but you don't want to go too much forward, but you don't want to defend and just absorb. You don't want to play too much of a defensive mentality. That's quite a conundrum. What do? You just play your game. You just go back to history. You go back to recent history. You go back to 2015. You go back to your bread and butter. What you know better. The counter. That's what you go back to. You go back to waiting for your opportunity. Make sure that Boyan has some nice stamina in these legs. Make sure that Romel Kyoto really had his oranges at halftime. That he's ready to have a good last 30 minutes because you'll need him on the pitch with his threat right there. When Saprissa will put everything forward, the kitchen sink and all that, the plumbing too, you'll need Romel Kyoto there. Still in shape, not like last week. That hurt a lot. Because what if he's on the counter? We saw his speed last week. But when he's off the pitch, and when Boyan's gassed, and when Okonkwo's already subbed from injuries, you have no speed. That's what happened. You need speed late in this game because you'll get an opportunity between the 70th and the 80th minute. Because Costa Rica will need to score no matter what happens before. And of course, if Montreal comes out and scores an early goal, then you're looking at a situation where Montreal might play it a bit defensive. And it might not even be by design. It might be just score effect. It's subconscious. You don't even want to do it, and you do it. We've all seen it happen. So that's a possibility also. But that's my scenario here. I don't think Montreal is going to score an early goal, but I do think Montreal is going to score in the second half. Now, will they concede in the first half? That depends. Will Banks start? That's another good indication of what the entire mentality. What is, first of all, and I want to stay away from the shape of, is it a 5-3-2-1 bingo? Is it a 2-3-2-2-2? It's more like the mentality. So having the 5 defenders with 3 central defenders and the 2 wing back defenders, kind of, you have a certain amount of responsibilities on the wing backs to not only defend but to also go forward. So these players are almost as much midfielders as they are defenders. So it is an attacking mentality when you want to also make sure that your backline is reassured and your middle of your backline is solid. Having the 3 pieces there give you a certain amount of diversity of ways to handle the pressure of the opponent. Now, we will see that again, I doubt, because the surprise is gone. The shock and awe effect is gone. That was only going to be there the first time you use it, and you needed that 30-40 minutes before Saprissa adjusted. That's where Montreal got their opportunities. That's where they were able to absorb, and then it got more difficult the more the game got going. And the more Montreal players were tired, the less they could emphasize their style of play, and they were just running after the ball. So that's the key. That's the key here. Montreal, unfortunately, will not be able to bridge the gap all the way. They're not going to necessarily have 60% of the possession, which is not the Montreal. It might be the Montreal Thierry Henry way going forward. Maybe some tiki-taka and some Barca ways coming to Montreal. That could be fun to watch this season. But in the Concacaf Champions League on a Wednesday night at the Centeno Olympic, there's only one recipe for success. And it's defend, hope, pray, hit him on the counter, and make sure when the third whistle blows at the end, you at least got the away goal advantage. And that's all that counts. And that's what I'm predicting. Don't know what the score is, but at least it's not going to be 2-2. I think this game finishes 1-1, with the Impact scoring the tying goal at the 75th minute. A Cameron Porter number 2 moment? Maybe, but it won't be as late in the game. So it won't have the same lasting effect. But it might be. It might be. That's where dreams start. That's where legends are born. That's where icons are immortalized under the bright lights. And tonight, at Stade Olympique, the lights will be bright. And until next time, I'm Kevin Laramé. We hope you enjoy this edition of Off the Woodworkx. And we'll be back, of course, post-game with many shows. You can find us everywhere. If you like this show, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. And, of course, the Patreon-only podcast is available at patreon.com/sportspodcasting network, where most of the Off the Woodworkx coverage will be available once in a while on the free feed, but mostly on the Patreon feed during the regular season. But as always, I'm Kevin Laramé. You can follow me at Kev Laramé. You can follow this show at Off the Woodworkx, and you can find the podcast version at sportspodcastingnetwork.com. Get ready. Hope you have a good nap. It's going to be an emotional evening at the Olympic Stadium. And until then, have a great soccer.